Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this video is going to be on how to develop and maintain trust while coaching employees. So we've been talking about different nuances of coaching employees if you've been watching other videos that I've recorded. And I think this is really one of the topics that we know about, but I don't think we think about all the dimensions about trust. You know, coaching, as we continue to talk about, is one of the most important things that a leader can do to help build his or her team. And of course, leaders have the biggest influence on organizational culture and therefore organizational success. So if a leader fails to take time to do the necessary coaching, then the team is not as strong as it has potential to be. So we've talked a lot about listening, and we've talked a lot about helping employees come to good conclusions. So here's the piece that's really missing. It's trust. And trust is always tested. Let me say that one more time. Trust is always being tested, and relationships are fragile. And you can't take a relationship for granted. And you have to kind of keep in mind that if you treat a relationship like it's fragile, you're probably going to be taking more care in making sure that you're building and maintaining that relationship. And that's what trust really is all about. Trust is the glue of all relationships. And I'm talking about at home and at work. You've probably heard me use the analogy before if you watched other videos or been to any of my live presentations, is that when you're in a committed relationship, maybe it's a marriage, and you break that trust by building a relationship an inappropriate relationship outside of your marriage. And maybe you just do it once. It was a mistake, quote unquote. And so you feel really bad about it, and you tell your partner, or your partner finds out about it, your significant other, that you're in a committed relationship. Your partner will never completely trust you ever again, completely, because you've made a mistake that violated the trust. And he or she may forgive you, but in the back of his or her mind, they will always be thinking about the time that you violated that trust. And so it really is much easier to maintain the trust in a relationship that's always being tested just a little bit, or maybe a lot. But maintaining that trust helps build speed in your organization. And I think I've talked about that before, is when you have people who really trust each other, you just know without a doubt that that person has your back and that they're going to support you even when you make mistakes. Then you can communicate or do things to help build the organization or team and keep people motivated and create better performance, because there's high levels of trust. So high levels of trust really must be earned, and leaders must make time to coach employees to help fix little nuances. And those are opportunities for improvement. And how a leader builds and maintains that trust takes maturity. So you can't be condescending when you're coaching an employee. And you have to make it a two-way relationship where you know that that relationship is fragile. And so you're having a conversation with your person that you're coaching in a way that helps build the person up. You're being realistic and pointing out flaws. You're not over-exaggerating good work, but you're helping people understand what they do and how it makes an impact. So very often, leaders get so busy doing their everyday job as a manager that they forget how important coaching people is. And so I've made a list of some things that I really want you to consider when you're coaching an employee. So one, you really have to build trust. And what's really important is what you're doing is you are building confidence in your own authority when you're coaching right. You can't allow people to ruin your team or your organization because they're not being competent. And it's your job as a leader to help coach people to become as competent as possible. And that may mean you need to be doing your homework by building your competence. And this is why learning to be a coach is so important. Doing continual professional development to build your leadership skills is so important. I suspect that's why you're watching this video. You recognize that you know that there may be something that you do not know. And where we put our focus, that's where we get our results. And so recognizing that you may be taking relationships for granted, or you may be not recognizing how you might be ruining trust. I had a manager a few years ago who she thought she was an amazing leader, but everybody was talking badly about her behind her back. And people didn't like her because they couldn't trust her. And the fact of the matter is she was the reason they couldn't trust her, because she would do things behind their back. She was very condescending, like she assumed she knew people when she didn't give people an opportunity for them to get to know each other better. And so she brought all these assumptions into the relationship as a new manager, and she violated trust all the time with people. And even doing things like talking badly about other people made people think, well, what is she saying about me behind my back? And so the levels of trust in the organization were really weak. And it created this organizational culture of, I got to cover my butt. I always have to be looking behind my back to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Or then other employees would start talking badly about each other behind each other's back, or looking for ways to put the spotlight on someone else who wasn't doing something right. So that's an unhealthy environment. Obviously, the organization needs to grow and be healthy, but it's the leader that has the biggest influence on organizational culture. And if they're not giving trust and building relationships that are built on a solid foundation of trust, then there's problems. See, leaders need to find ways to help utilize the diversity of their employees. And that means really helping people find their own strengths and use those strengths to build the organization up. And so those are the things that good coaches do. They recognize where the strengths are. They find a way to understand what the strengths are of those employees. And that's why my number one tip for developing and maintaining trust really is to know your employees. You may know their names, you may know their positions, but what do you really know about your employee? This is where an investment of taking an employee out for coffee and really listening, asking questions to find out about their past experiences, their strengths, their goals, their history with the organization, anything about their background and their professional qualifications. And then if they have something to offer about their personal life that feels like it's an appropriate thing, maybe they have a spouse or kids that are important to them. If it's important to them, it should be important to you. And those little things, times that you take to get to know employees, those are the things that help build relationships that makes the coaching sessions even stronger. I had a CEO that I worked for that she was an amazing leader, and she knew that I had a son, and she made time to find out what my son was doing, and my son has a YouTube channel, and she took time to watch my my son's YouTube channel and give some positive feedback to my son. That meant a lot to me. And so that leader really recognized the value of relationships. If it's important to an employee, it should be important to you as a leader. So, but you can't assume anything about an employee. You got to give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people are good and have good intentions and want to do good for the organization with what they have to offer, but you as a leader and a coach have got to take time to get to know your employee. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Always find ways to make them feel like they're winning, because they genuinely are. A win for them is a win for your organization. People should feel good about their jobs and their careers, because we spend a third of our lives, most of us, in the workplace. So help them feel good about their job. The next thing is about transparency. So number one is know your employees. Number two really is about enforcing transparency. I've worked for organizations where there was lots of things that went on behind people's backs, and that caused a feeling of a lack, like there wasn't enough abundance in the organization. So people were hoarding resources or working in silos to protect what they had, and the really good organizations really are all about connecting people with other people so they can collaborate more. And when you're making decisions and there's going to be an impact on people, you got to look for win-win solutions. If you're harming people in your organization or related to your organization, that's going to come back and affect the morale of people. And we all have an influence on the impact of our organization. So as a leader, we have to make sure that we're coaching people to be as transparent as possible. Be professional about things, discussing policies in a way where we're giving people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes policies need to be changed because they've been in place for a long time, but they're no longer needed. And so being able to help people make the best decisions possible takes you being transparent in having conversations about the possible potential impacts that decisions could have. And when you make a mistake, for instance, you're not covering up the mistake, you're owning your own mistake, and making things better. And mistakes are opportunities to learn how to do things even better. So if you're hiding your mistakes, chances are other people are hiding their mistakes, and mistakes could be costly. I worked for a leader who would look for who made the mistakes and then chop off their head, so to speak. And who made this mistake? So everyone was scared, because it's human to make mistakes, but everyone was scared to admit that they've made mistakes, and so that affected the organizational culture. So the turnover was really high, which means the expenses related to hiring and training new employees and the mistakes new employees would make would constantly be a churn. And that causes the cost of doing business to be much more expensive, generally speaking. So when you are transparent and you're helping other people understand the value of transparency, that makes the organization stronger. So when you're coaching people, help them recognize your flaws and how you've overcome those flaws. Any problem is an opportunity. And so when there's something that you recognize that didn't work right, you gain wisdom from those experiences. So that's a coaching thing that you can be doing. One of the most important things is collaboration. So I had an organization that I was doing some consulting work, and there was a new supervisor that came into the organization. She inherited a team of about 10 people. And there were people, as there always are, that was trying to win favor of the new boss. And one of those people that was trying to help the boss, her intentions was really good, she was really part of a big part of the problem in the organization, the team. she was talking badly about other coworkers and looking for flaws, essentially trying to shine the spotlight on other people's errors to get them fired or get them in trouble. And that actually made the team a little bit weaker, because nobody trusted anybody, because everybody was trying to look behind their backs, and I'm not saying that anything unethical was going on in that organization, but the culture was weak because one individual was insecure about her job, that she had to, she felt like it was her job to talk badly about other people and make other people look bad. We all have flaws. Nobody is perfect. But highlighting those flaws in a way, even though your intentions are good, could make the organization a little bit weaker, because there's low levels of trust. And that's what we're talking about. So what I had to coach the new supervisor about is she had to stop this individual from talking badly about other people and to give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people want to do a good job and are doing their best to do a good job, but there are many different ways to accomplish that. And when someone is putting other people down, that's creating little infights that don't need to be happening. It's causing a breakdown of trust that doesn't need to be broken down. So the coaching that went on was to really help that employee understand how her actions had a negative impact, and that the leader recognized that the reason why the person was doing what she was doing was because her intent was to help make the organization stronger. So it's not a fellow employee's job to sabotage the organization. It's everybody's job to help find ways to make the organization stronger. So we have to foster collaboration. Always look for opportunities to praise good work. Give people credit for their successes. Don't point blame for failures, because anything that doesn't go right is an opportunity to make things better. Change the systems, change the way things are happening. Praise discovery of things that aren't working right, but don't blame individuals. People need to feel good about what they're doing and be given an opportunity to make things better. So we have to always constantly be listening to what employees are saying, really listening, and finding ways to help employees recognize their own value and help them recognize the value that other people bring. I can remember working in an organization where there was someone who was doing something totally different, and I brought it up to the leader. And the leader, thinking that leader would praise me for recognizing that this other employee was doing things the wrong way. Kind of like the same scenario that I ended up coaching an employee for. And the wise leader said, "Paul, it's just different. It's not your way, it's their way, and that's okay." And I thought, okay, if that employee is getting results doing things his way, and it's okay with the top leader in the organization, it's okay for me to make my own contributions in my way. Which is closely related to number 4. So number 3 is foster collaboration. Number 4 is positive recognition. I really believe there's a book that came out a few years ago. It's been many years now, but it's called First Break All the Rules, and it's a book written by some authors who work for the Gallup Institute, and they did research on what the best leaders did. And essentially one of the things that the best leaders did constantly is every 5 days, essentially they're finding ways to praise. And so if you're always looking for ways to recognize good work, you're probably going to continue to get more great performance. And when people feel satisfied with their job, they're not going to be looking for ways to leave the organization and make the competition stronger by bringing their experience and knowledge and skills to that organization. You want to keep the talent in your organization and growing, and you do that through positive recognition. So if you want to really be an effective leader, you have to find ways to give positive recognition to employees. Let's talk about managing disputes. This is number 5. So number 4 was positive recognition. Number 5 is manage disputes. And let's face it, people will disagree. And a lot of people avoid conflict. But if you change the mindset that conflict is healthy, and conflict really is all about just seeing things differently, and that's what our diversity brings. Our diversity means that we see things differently because our upbringing are differently and our training is different. And that's a positive thing. So we can't make people wrong as much as we need to be coaching people to help them be right. And find ways to utilize the perspectives of other people, because the more open our minds are to seeing things people's different ways, the more tools we have to create better solutions that make the organization that we're leading in better. So you have to take time to really understand what's going on in the conflict, lay down a solid groundwork. And when you're coaching people, you have to be neutral. You cannot appear to take another person's side. You have to be able to show that you're understanding both perspectives from a neutral perspective to try to help bring people together to find mutual understanding. And it could be one person in that party has the wrong perspective, but that's your opportunity to coach that person into helping him or her understand the other perspectives to have the right thinking with a win-win outcome. People need to feel trusted. People need to feel valued. And every person is smart and brings their own form of intelligence and skills that make the organization stronger. But it's the weakness of a leader who fails to take time to coach and manage employees through disputes that makes the organization weaker, because that breaks down trust. And trust is the glue of all relationships. So you have to build and maintain trust by making sure that you know your employees, you enforce transparency, you foster collaboration, you give positive recognitions for real work that's adding value to the organization so that people feel good about, know what they're doing is right and what really works, and encourages people to do it even better. And it feels good to see working in an organization where you see wins happening all the time. And then you're properly managing disputes in a way where you're remaining neutral, you're helping all people that are involved in the dispute understand the different issues, and you're respecting the diversity of people because you're being inclusive, you're modeling effective listening. And you recognize that trust is something that you earn by giving trust. And then you must maintain that trust by being professional, by being mature, by recognizing that most people are trying to do the right thing. And when people aren't doing the right thing, you have to help them through a questioning process that helps people, that's not condescending, that helps people understand how what they're doing may bring a negative impact to the organization. But they have to come to that conclusion, and you can't force it down their throat. So this video is over 20 minutes long, and so I'm going to cut it short, but I appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.